Good evening, everybody. Before we call the meeting to order, we're going to swear in the two council members, Joel Sprick returning and Julie Hamilton as a new council member. Eric King also won the election. However, he has declined to be sworn in and is not going to be taking his position on council. You'll be hearing more about that this evening after council has its regular session about the appointment for a new council member. So before we start and open the meeting, we're going to do the swearing in. We'll call the meeting to order. If you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Rachel, would you do roll call, please?
Sure. Kakamo? Here. Ferraro? Here. Ferber?
Present.
Hamilton? Morris?
Present.
Rick?
Here.
Boyd.
Okay. Before council begins their official agenda for the evening, this is the reorganization meeting. So council will elect a president and vice president. With that in mind, is there a nomination for council president?
I elect Norris, president.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll third.
Okay. So Bob Norris being one, is there another nomination for the office of president? Okay. With only one candidate then, all those in favor say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. Bob Norris for council president. Is there a nomination for vice president?
I will nominate Kathleen Kakamo.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Is there another nomination for council vice president?
I do. Third.
Two is enough.
Is enough.
Two will be fine. No other nominations? Then all those in favor for Kathleen Kakamo as vice president, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so the new council president will be Bob Norris, vice president Kathleen Kakamo, and I will turn the meeting over to new council president, Mr. Norris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to my fellow council members. I'll do my best. I'll try to do as well as our President Emeritus Doug did. Thanks again, Doug, for your service. With that is, Julie, would you like to make a motion to adopt the agenda? Is there a second? Are there any edits or comments to the agenda? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? Just ask you to keep them on the brief side. Keep the meeting moving along.
Charlotte Watson, 523 Magnolia Street in Kennett Square. You notice John's absent, so I wish everybody would keep him in mind in whatever faith you have in your prayers, because he's been missing in action for some time. I come before you today because I'm speaking to a body of people who are elected to serve the citizens. I want to remind you that that's what the task of this assignment is. It's not a popularity contest. It's not to foster one person's ideal or agenda. It is for you to be the champion of the citizens in this town, of their issues. And we have been neglected a long while, and we continue to be neglected. And I want you to remember, first, the debt. The table you sit at costing $30-some thousand. A bond that was floated for the first garage that was extended for a period of years, said it was going to shorten and benefit us greatly, and it's still on the records of us paying it. A bond that was floated for the second garage. Then we have this building, considerable amount of debt, and it's underdeveloped. Then we have the expenses that go with it to clean it out, clean it up, and we have the tax burden. I could go on and on. And the last meeting in December, you passed the bill for a loan towards whatever the $4 million for the police station. But tagged on with that was Birch Street. And I still need an explanation for that. Why Birch Street another time? And what for? And I've been watching the production around here of capital projects, infrastructure, which I think is a dirty word. Everybody in politics uses it, but nobody stands by it. They just said that for the streets in Pennsylvania today on the news. So when the tolls go up, they point to infrastructure, but we still have the bad roads. Same thing in Kennett. When you do the sewer, when you do the water on South Street, there weren't any problems there. Updating a sewer or any type of pipes down in those areas for what you think in order to do a bargain with Kennett Township or New Garden is a disgrace to the public of this town. We are double paying for things that are already in our general budget. The FAR was in our general budget. So now we hear about, was tagged on the last meeting, a tax for the EMS. We already have that. That's why we needed the tax. We already have that in our general budget. So how many more things can we pay for without getting a service? I encourage you to speak your mind, to know you have the autonomy of anybody on this council. You're just as worthy to speak up and even correct your peers and give advice for things you think will be better off for the citizens than self-serving for those people who come before you asking for things. We've seen things just given away here. And I'm not happy with that, and neither is the public. They're fed up. But you know, voting in America is just, we vote out of habit. We don't vote for any real reasons in America anymore. We just go to the polls because they say we need to go to the polls. We don't even know what the issues are. I'm asking you to be politically responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments this evening?
Ken Edwards, 412 Meritage Street, Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. First off, I'd like to welcome the 2 new members to council. Hope you have fun. It'll be a joyride. Learn from what you see. Because if you don't know what's going to happen. I agree with Charlotte. We keep getting work, money, spending money for Birch Street. There's supposedly, and I use that word loosely, grants to have that work done 3, 4 years ago. Now, I'm sure the money's there because we were told we got the money, the grant was granted, but nothing's been done to improve it. The only thing that's been done over there has been one developer is buying up all the properties. That's about it. Now, council needs to do something. What? I don't know. What's the status on NBF? I know that you're going to say, oh, it can't be sold. It's been sold 3 times in the last 5, 6 years. And you still can't do anything with it. That's 20-some acres of valuable commercial or industrial ground. That's just sitting there wasting away because they say it's still too polluted. Yet there's nothing being done to prevent people from walking across that property to get from point A to point B. There's kids playing on that property. They use part of that concrete for skateboarding, but nothing's been done. And you can't say you don't know about it. If you drive down Mulberry Street sometime, you'll see them there, particularly when the weather's warm. They use the big pad for the warehouse and manufacturing part, plus where that old office used to be next to the self-storage place, which is right in my backyard. So I see it every time it happens. The fence they got there wouldn't stop a drop of rain. But something needs to be done about that. Something needs to be done about making sure that the money that we get for a specific project, that project gets done. Birch Street, it's a shambles. I'd be embarrassed to say that I lived on that street, especially when the road's 4 or 5 inches higher than the damn curb. And it should have been done years ago, but nothing's been happening. I've had to go and complain about alleys that hadn't been touched in 30 years. Luckily, you listened, you took care of them. So use your mind. When people complain about stuff, go out and look at it and see if what they're seeing is what you see. Because it should be. Like I said, Birch Street, that's an embarrassment to the whole town. Yeah, it's on the southwest eastern part of the borough. Maybe that's the problem. You don't want to spend money in that part of the borough.
Any other comments? Thanks very much for keeping those comments brief. Thank you. Reports, any managers report this evening?
Just a thank you to our staff, Public Works, Police, Fire, and EMS for a really successful mushroom drop. That's a great event. A lot of people like it, and everyone stayed safe, so I appreciate that. And then a thank you to our team. Maybe a week or 2 ago, we received a notification that we had gotten about $500,000 in new grant dollars to help improve some of the drinking water in the borough. It's safe, but this will make it taste a little bit better. So it's a complicated project, but this pairs with about $500,000 from the county. So it's $1 million in grant funds awarded in 23 to go towards, a needed project. So just a thank you to our team for that.
Thank you. Mr. Solicitor, anything you wanted to share before we get into the meeting?
Happy New Year to everybody.
Chief?
Hi, good evening. Unfortunately, the way the holidays had fallen, we weren't able to send a report to you until probably about an hour and a half ago. It's in your email, and I've asked Rachel to also put it into the Dropbox. Nothing to really highlight off of it. We're happy 23 is over. It was a tough year. We're looking forward to 24 being much better. Midnight in the Square, like Kyle said, was a phenomenal event. Everything went well, it was a good, safe event. I'm happy to be moving forward with positivity. We had some good updates. As far as this morning, I received information that one of our officers that's been out since mid-November, coming back to work on Monday. So that will certainly help things and take away some of the burdens. We're optimistic that the other officers. If you have any questions, please let me know when you have a chance to do the report.
Any questions for the chief? Thank you very much, Chief. AJ, anything highlights you want to share in terms of fire and EMS? What's going on? Herculean effort when it came to what you guys all did, being there within minutes and probably saving that building from a lot more damage than they had. That's for sure. Thank you, and thanks to both your groups for being out there answering the calls when we're warm, snug in our beds on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Appreciate it. Committee reports. I don't see a lot of folks from the committees. Anyone from Macola? Brief finance report. We met on December 14th. Our next meeting is scheduled for January 18th at 3 p.m. in this building on the second floor. Highlights are, we reviewed our check signing process over the last couple of months and are very comfortable based on our auditor's report that the check signing process is solid and strong. Even though we wanted to up it a little bit. So we actually asked the chief to come on as a signature for non-police sorts of invoices. So he'll take that responsibility on. So the signers are the chief, the chair of the finance committee, our manager, and our director of finance. Am I correct? There.
That's correct.
We're going to try to not use the township manager or the borough manager, forgive me. We're going to try to use the chief and the chair of the finance committee whenever possible, just to keep it as transparent as possible. Financials through November we reviewed it overall in good shape. There's a couple of moving from one pocket to the other, but overall we're in pretty good shape. Looks like we're coming in where we thought we'd be. Nick, any other comments on that you wanted to share? Okay. And then the other two projects that the finance committee will take up this year are a hard review of the 600 South Broad Street, this property's financials, to really understand the impact that this property and its costs are having and how to reduce the cost as much as possible, certainly by getting revenue from it, but what else can we be doing? And then also certainly taking a hard look at the long-term financial impact of the fire and EMS increases over the years and what we're going to do, going forward and how we make sure we're set up for that financially. Joel, have I missed anything?
Nope, you got it.
Okay. Harb, I don't see Andy or anyone here from Harb. Kappa's not here this evening. Clark, nothing from planning. Any other committees? I'm missing public safety. Matt, Kathleen?
We did not meet in December. The chief and Kyle and I met to look at a new agenda and some new format for the public safety meeting. So we're finishing that up. We'll have that ready in the next couple of weeks. And then after you do the committee assignments, then we'll kind of be ready to roll that out. The one thing is that we definitely committed to doing is moving that meeting to the evening so that more folks can attend.
When will that be?
It'll be the February meeting, and then just kind of subject to the who gets appointed to the different committees as time goes on. But as of right now, the committee meetings will be on the third week of the month, so probably Wednesdays. Did we say Wednesdays or Tuesdays? Tuesdays. So the third Tuesday of the month at 7, so we can have it in public, more public accessibility.
Thank you. Did I miss any other committees or anyone else who wanted to say anything?
Personnel, We met to discuss the approval of the job description for both planning and zoning manager, which is on the.
Thank you very much. Sam. The first item under administration, under Historical Architecture Review Board is that an application for 312 South Broad Street to basically add a detached garage onto that property was reviewed by the HARB. I don't see anyone from the HARB here, but it was reviewed and unanimously recommended for approval for a certificate of appropriateness. Is there any council member who'd like to make a motion to offer or authorize the certificate of appropriateness?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Joel. Is there a second? Thanks, Sam. Any discussion? Any brief question from anyone? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. And all the action items, Kyle, tonight, we're actually going to vote on. We're not going to hold them. Okay, so they're all action items for this evening. Next item is to consider a resolution for the 2024 appointments of Borough Secretary, Treasurer, and Open Records Officers. Those being Rachel for Borough Secretary and Open Records, Nick as Borough Treasurer, and the Chief as the Open Records Officer for the Police Department Affairs. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll move to approve this resolution.
Thank you, Kathleen. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Do any of these roles indicate any change from this past year, Kyle?
No.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It carries. Next item is Resolution 2024-2, designating emergency service providers for the Borough of Kennett Square. The intent of this is to basically name Longwood Fire Company as our primary fire and EMS provider, along with Kennett Fire Company and Pomarlin as part of the regional fire company. This was reviewed by our council back and forth for the last a few days or weeks. I believe AJ and team have looked at it and are comfortable with it. Chris, is there anything I'm missing?
No, we had one small correction to it, just ensuring that it was Longwood Fire Company as the primary designated fire EMS. We made that correction to the one that was in your initial pack. But otherwise, good to go.
Thank you. Is there a motion regarding resolution number 2024-2, designating emergency service providers for the Borough of Kennett Square? Going once?
I will make that.
Thank you, Sam. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Joel. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much, Kennett Regional Fire Company and the fire companies and EMS providers. And their support staff here as well. Thank you. And next is item number 14C, consider resolution for 2024 professional service fees. Kyle, just a little background on this, please.
Sure. This would keep the same providers that we had in 2023 with moderate increases for inflation.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 2024-3?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? Thank you, Kathleen. Thanks, Sam. Discussion? What changes specifically, do you know what the changes were and what those amounts were by any chance
There were about $10 differences from last year.
for each of them?
The only one that didn't, Buckley Bryan, I don't believe.
That's about a,
I think they kept their rates.
that's about a 3.5-4% increase overall, if that's the case. When would we or have we used the other legal firms that are listed here, Brutcher, Foley, Milner, and Hangley Aronchek? I don't recall. Have we ever used them?
Brutcher Foley was used for all of Magnolia Place, which actually is just finishing up. I think a last, I don't know, dot of an I across the T. So I updated their stuff. But Hangley and Runcheck, I'm not positive when the last time we used them. Oh.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stephen, we worked with.
Right, okay. One other suggestion that Kyle and I had kicked around a couple weeks ago was considering the council doing a review, frankly, a review of our borough solicitor or solicitors, as well as our zoning hearing board solicitor, just to kind of stop and say, no critique, no issues that I'm aware of, but just to stop and say, hey, how are we doing? What's good? What's bad? What needs to be changed? And frankly, to ask them to do the same thing of us, as compared to their other clients, where are we saving money? Where could we be more efficient? How could we run the business better than we do right now? So that's just a suggestion for us to consider. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. And next up is resolution number 2024-4, a resolution revising the schedule of fees for services in the Borough of Kennett Square effective January 1st, 2024.
Sure. As a background, obviously residents are paying fees and taxes. We put great effort into keeping these fees steady, given that we proposed and passed a tax increase for the coming year. The caveat to that is the trash fee, which is contract that the borough bids on behalf of residents, and there are inflation numbers built in. So the number that you see here is taking that end number and dividing by the number of users.
Any significant changes to the schedule?
It is just the trash. That is the only change.
Okay, thank you. Is there, sorry.
Just a question. I thought we had talked about adding to the parking fees, the special event fee, so that we could approve that through the fee schedule instead of having to approve it at each council meeting.
Yeah, I think that we had talked about that.
Is it, because can we add that now? Can we amend it and add that now so it's here?
You want to offer an amendment to what we have here?
I can't. But yeah, but we need to add the special event parking. So if somebody wants to make a motion to amend it to add the special event parking fee.
What page? What page, Rachel?
6.
Six.
There's a long-term parking garage permit for $800 a year.
I'm referring to the special event when we allow a group to open the gate and pay for all the parking. So it's that fee.
Okay.
And we want it on the fee schedule instead of just on the special event, so that it can be approved by staff without having to run it through council each time by having it on the fee.
We had one fee for outside companies and then a separate fee for something.
Yeah,
non-for-profit.
4 and 5. So it was 400. That's right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll add it right in that spot.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I could ask you to make one more amendment. Just found out today on the same page under parking fees, 25-cent transaction fee for electronic payments being raised to 35. Back to me.
Electronic.
Is there, I'm sorry. Is there a council person who'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution with the 2 edits?
Motion.
Thank you. Great motion, by the way, Julie. Very good motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Consider the borough manager contract. We have in front of us an employment agreement, which is required by law, I guess, for our manager because his employment officially ended, I guess, at the end of 2023. There was a review process which the council all was able to participate in, that our former president ran and shared the results of that, which were very impressive. So this contract basically is to extend his employment agreement for the next 2 years. There was one edit that was made to the agreement over the last couple of days based on comments, and that was to require the manager to provide a minimum of 4-week notice of a resignation, just to give the borough a bit more time in the event that Kyle or any future manager wanted to move on from this fine place he calls home right now. So with that, we'll get into discussion. Is there a motion to approve the employment agreement for the borough manager?
I will move to approve the employment agreement for the borough manager.
Thank you, Joel. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Timothy, thanks. Discussion. Any council discussion, any questions that anyone has? We've had a couple days to review it. Any brief question or comment, Doug, from you? Okay, thank you for shepherding this through. Any other questions from anyone? Yeah. Correct me, Chris, it's an at-will contract?
That's right. That's right. There's a for-cause provision too. So we've covered all the bases under Pennsylvania law.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It carries unanimously. Thank you. And thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Next is the 2024 Volunteer Board Commissions Committees structure. Is there an action on this?
No, we were just putting this out here to give council a chance to think it through. We have quite a few boards and committees and commissions that are important. And at the February meeting, we'll plan to take nominations and try to act on that. So thank you to Rachel for compiling this. You'll see there's a lot to it. So if you can think of people who should be getting involved, please send them our way. We'll have an application up on the website. We probably already do.
And if anyone here would like to consider getting onto a board or a committee, please chat with Kyle or Sonny or one of the members on that committee already. We'd love to make these committees very active and meaningful in terms of shaping the town and the future of what's going on here. And there are a number of vacancies now, so thank you very much. Item 14G, I believe, was pulled from the agenda. Consider parking consideration around Genesis. Is there an action item there?
I think just discussion, right, Kyle?
It was. So our attorney, Mike Crotty, has informed us that this could be sent as a letter as long as there's council buy-in to the idea of it. The request has come from Genesis, given that they're planning to sell their buildings in short order. Instead of paying the full charge on parking, which is significant for all of 24, what Mike has worked with their legal counsel on is potentially a month-to-month until May. And if it's not sold or it hasn't transferred hands by then they would pay the full amount. And so what that does is if there's a handoff, then someone new should be expected to either start paying or we'd have an agreement with them. And if it hits May and they haven't sold it yet, then they pay us the full amount, which helps with our debt payments in the spring.
So are you looking for comment from council?
We're looking for if council is comfortable with us sending that note.
Okay. Any comment, discussion from council? Kathleen?
So if, let's say they went to contract on it, how quickly would it potentially change hands? Would it change hands like in a month, or would it change hands in 3 months?
So they believe that they will close here in short order,
Not enough.
but we're not doing the transaction. So
So my point is, since, that's why I'm asking that question, is it something that's gonna happen like this month? And they're only gonna have to pay January? Or is it something that might be in 3 months? So why are they not just paying a quarter instead of it being month to month?
you could ask for that.
And they can get that money back from whoever they're buying property from, and it's not on us, it's on transaction for that. Just like it would if it was a regular real estate. And sewer and water. I think for us to agree to a month on a maybe proposition is putting it on us to help them out. Whereas just pay your a quarter, and which gets you to April. And if it closes, fine, get your money back from the people who bought it. If it doesn't, pay us the rest.
So just to clarify, it is due at the beginning of the year. So if you're looking for quarterly, we can certainly offer that. That would be different than what is currently in place. What,
Silly.
okay, so we're looking for direction. So that would be, is there other interest in quarterly?
I would personally give, I mean, we want to get as much revenue as we can, as securely as we can. My only concern is if there's any doubt in getting that revenue longer term. I mean, I would personally, I'd say to you as the manager, I'd say, understand what's going on with their business and work out the best payment arrangement you can, ensuring that we get the funds in the door as quick as we can, using your discretion and knowledge. What do others think, though? Timothy, any thoughts?
I personally, like the idea of the quarterly, like if we pay our water and sewer, we sell our home, if there's anything or trash, we would, get that money back, in settlement.
Joel?
I like the idea of quarterly, now that it's been brought up. Not knowing the ins and outs personally of real estate transactions, it seems that is a pretty standard way of doing things.
Julie?
Well, yeah, it's cheap. Out and not get where
Well, I think the risk of not getting a quarter because it's 3 times 1 month is greater. If you read the financial press, Genesis is not doing well. And I think they're selling the buildings because they have to sell the buildings. That's my only concern. I don't have inside information. It's just, it's concern of, I'd rather have, bird in hand as opposed to not.
I know I'm gonna ask, I know Mike kind of, what was the
That was his idea, is that we want to get as much revenue in as we can. And the hard, deadline for us in terms of revenue is our bond payment in the spring. So that's why he put that end on it.
That was, my question is, will we have received enough in 5 months to make the bond payment? I don't know what the payment amount is, but I know last year when they were late on their payment, we were worried about that. So do we know what the bond payment is, Nick? And, because I believe it's in May, isn't it?
It's just under $300,000. Bond payment.
So if in their annual payment to us is 280,000, 308,000. So if we're only gonna have 5 months worth of 308, are we gonna have the cash flow to pay the bond payment?
So the way that it was being talked about was that deadline would happen before the bond payment is due. So they would have to pay the full 12 months at that mark.
I get it, but my concern financially is if if we get to that place and they've only paid 5 months and now they have no cash, then we're the ones carrying the bag as opposed to pushing the payment up front. Right? So if their cash flow gets worse over the next 5 months, we're going to be the ones stuck with the bond payment as opposed to, and I'm not opposed to working with them. I think we should work with any business in town. But if there's a risk that we're not going to be able to make our bond payment because they didn't make their payment to us, that's my only concern. Because if we say that it's due on May 1st, the balance is due on May 1st, and they don't make that payment, we have days to figure it out as opposed to now it's technically due in February. I believe the payments are due in February. The annual payment's due in February. So we have 4 months to figure out what to do if they default. If the payment catch-up isn't due until May 1st and they default, we have weeks to figure it out. So that would be my concern on it. It's under contract. But I think, the due diligence period ended, but I think they extended it 90
I
days.
think it ends mid-January, I believe.
You just.
It's not even due until the payment normally isn't due until March 1st anyway. They don't generally pay in January or February, so. I mean, I totally trust Kyle to figure it out, but that would be my concern is that we have weeks to scramble as opposed to months to scramble.
We suggest that we'd like quarterly payments and let Kyle use his discretion to come back to the council if he needs to change that for some reason. That be okay? You all right?
My only other question is, considering what Matt's saying here, is the new owner obliged to pay that amount that is the difference?
So it's all based on use, which we don't know of the next user. So it's roughly probably the same, but if they swap office spaces for residential, that changes the math. So the easiest way to say it is that they have requirements to have their use and occupancy permit unless council changes it, and we will enforce those. But it changes, they have many uses they're allowed to do there. And depending on which ones they choose, it triggers different parking requirements. They've given us a sense, but it's not concrete.
Mr. Solicitor, if they default on their parking, is it a lienable item that we could lien prior to closing if we had to?
That I had to get back.
I think certainly we'd want to lien it if we knew that it was lienable, so it'd be forced to be paid at closing. Who knows how far down the list we would be of creditors? But I think we want to at least be prepared to lien it if we had, if something came up.
My inclination is yes, but I'll have to.
I just wonder where it would fall in the lien priority of, but they'd have to pay it. If I recall, when we purchased this building, it was part of a overall commercial blanket mortgage on maybe a dozen properties in multiple states. And they did a partial release of that mortgage for this building. I just want to make sure we can lien it if we feel like they're getting in trouble, I want to make sure we can lien it.
That's the real issue, is to protect ourselves. We want as much of that revenue as we can, whatever that means, within the agreement that we have with them. So you okay? You have
Yes.
guidance? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next item is 14H. Consideration of the contract with the YMCA for the outdoor community pool. First, is there a motion to approve the amendment to the community pool ground lease agreement? I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Thank you. Discussion, just briefly, we went back and forth with the YMCA with what we think is a good agreement. The council gave the go-ahead for the manager and our solicitor to negotiate on this and to bring it to an agreement that we can sign off on. It gives the community, basically the opportunity to join as either individual, small family, large families, on a seasonal basis. The prices are $175 for individual members, but if you're at 80% of the area mean income, meaning if you're in that affordable or attainable level of income in your family, the prices will be dropped by 60% from that base. So for the 175 individual membership, that'd actually be $70 you'd have to pay for the summer. For a family membership of 2 to 3 adults and up to 4 children, it's $275 or $110 if you're below that cutoff of income. For a larger family, it's $335 or $134 for a family of lower means. The pool will be open every weekend from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And then within 7 days of school closing, we'll be open every day from 2 to 7 and 12 to 5 on weekends. It also gives the borough the opportunity to hold 2 free public community events at the pool at our choosing, working with the Y. It also gives 6 passes that will be at the library that any family can go and basically, as if you're renting a book, you rent the pass for your family to go use the pool, which we thought was a nice add-on from the YMCA as well. I think those are the highlights. What other discussion or comments from council? Timothy, Sam? Kathleen, did you have something?
I'm still not happy it's opening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because it's summer and kids need things to do. So I understand that they're running camps, but I've also been an outdoor pool member when camps were running and we were at the pool. We just had to wait for the swim teams to finish, so we were at the pool by noon, which I'd like to see if there's some way we can figure out. I also like to make sure that we're open earlier on the weekend.
That's a good time there.
Noon to 5 is sort of short.
I feel like most people they're like mid-morning or mid-afternoon.
Right. Then there's the 5-year period. I'd like us to sort of work through some issues with them before we commit to it. I'd like to see them sort of show us that they're committed to working with us. So
So just so I'm clear, it used to just be open to Y members. Now we're opening up people who live in the borough as well. Or has it always been that? And I'm just not, I was not aware of that.
It's the Y. It's always been the borough owns the pool and leases it back to the Y for $10 a year, Nick, something like that. It's always been a community pool. When the borough started leasing the pool to the Y, they took over the capital improvements of the pool and managing the pool and kept it open for borough residents. I don't know the exact time or hours, but it was always been a borough resident. Last year, after COVID, their use of the pool. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this year they did, but not with great hours. I think the hours were very minimal and not many people were happy about that.
I saw lots of.
Yeah. So the borough went back to the Y and said, nah, that's not working. We need a better deal. So after a number of back and forths, this is what where we ended up, as at least this evening.
is it stating here that all 3 pools will be available?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Not finding it.
Yeah. And I think there's also a commitment to that they're going to put $140,000 I read in capital improvements. See that?
So I know maybe not this year, but if like we're working with them, I'd like to see something in the agreement that pushes them to open earlier in future seasons, like compromise with us, not just agree to, okay, 2 o'clock's great when it's actually not agreeable to most of us. So if we can somehow find a way to put in there that we'd like to work further on getting it open earlier for the general public, even if that requires, the showing that the public is using it, like with a certain utilization of like how many public are coming out. We're showing you that we want, or have interest in using the pool now, work with us and getting it open for the general.
How would you measure that? How would you determine that?
No, but
That's the whole emphasis. We're trying to get it to be much back to a community pool. So Kathleen, is there a,
Like weird hours. Who's sending?
people can come. There are that have little ones who. they utilize.
their rationale for that, good or bad, was that because of the camps, they had a lot of parents who were very uncomfortable when campers were there while the general public was there, and just the supervision and oversight of that was not to the wise liking.
All around. Why would that? I guess I would want to understand before you. How actively.
I don't know. I believe their camp programs are very successful. I think they're highly taken advantage of. I don't know the numbers.
There is some regulatory issues that come up with folks being, well, the kids are in camp. Everybody that's employed there has gone through a criminal background check. Everybody's through there. So if there's no background check for the folks that are using it at the exact same time, that is part of the issue that they brought to our attention. And that's reasonable, right? But not during the camp. Camp's is a different thing. When you're there with your parents and you're participating at the Y, it's all locked off and cordoned off separately. When camp is in session, every camp counselor has been fingerprinted, photographed, everyone's gone through security clearances. So that is part of the issue, is that you can't have people that are not cleared in with kids simultaneously. You can't. And part of those laws did change over time over this period. So either you have to figure out to work with them, or maybe they have certain days that they can't use the pool for camp or something like that. There's a way there, but I totally understand the intermingling issue. Right? All it's going to do is take one person to intermingle with them and have a problem, and then the whole thing's going to get shut down.
I think that, at least for this coming season for the summer, we have a plan. And we've pushed that dial to get something. If we keep the dialogue open, see how this year works, and then at least have the opportunity to revisit it and possibly extend the hours, maybe let's try this the way it is and see how many numbers show up from the community. And if so, let's go to the table and talk about possibly opening up earlier. But this was far cry from where we started from the conversation.
Any other comment from council? Is there any brief public comment? The 175 for an individual, 70 if you're 80% or less, 275 for a family of 2 to 3 adults up to 4 children in the same household, 110 is the discounted price. $335 for a family membership, which is 3+ adults, and whatever number of children in the same family. And that's $134 discounted. Yeah. Yeah.
Income.
It's based on area mean income. So in Chester County, in Chester County, it's roughly $80,000. So if you're under $80,000 is when the discounts start to kick in, which is the same criteria used for affordable or attainable housing, numbers by the county. With that, all those in favor as the agreement as is, or Kathleen, did you want to offer an amendment to it?
My question is, how do we keep the door open to negotiate year to year in this next 5-year period that we still have the option to make adjustments and push them to make adjustments and not just be happy right where it is, because we're not happy right where it is.
By this agreement, they're required by October. Help me out if someone remembers that clause. Read that section if you would.
Lesser on.
For any change in rates.
Right, that's only the rate change.
Right.
On page 3, it says lessee shall, so it's without limitation on what changes may be found to be material lessee's failure to keep the community pools strictly open between Memorial Day and Labor Day, more than one season in 5-year period shall be deemed material. So are we giving them sort of so my question there is, are we giving them a 5-year sort of window?
No, that's not.
Yeah, that's more a breach of the agreement, I think. Suppose we change this to live with it as is, as Timothy is suggesting, but we have to come back to the table by October 1st of this year to see whether or not the council is still in support of the terms as they are. You live with that?
Agree with that?
So with that amendment, Rachel, do you have the gist of that? So with that amendment, all those in favor with the agreement? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to Nick and Nick Perro and Mike Kanji for getting this ball rolling. Consider item number 14I, consider approval of job description for codes, planning and zoning manager.
Great, thank you. This is exciting. The borough has been down a couple members in our planning, zoning, and code enforcement department. Previously had 4. Right now, we're at 1, 2 rather, as of a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So our newest member, Joe, is actually in the audience tonight, checking things out. This would be for the manager for the department. She comes to us as a BCO. As well as a master's in admin. Great candidate, did really well in our interviews. And the request here is to approve the job description. Candidly, it's largely what we've had with just a little more succinct. And we have a proposed job offer here that she signed contingent on council approval. So these 2 items work together.
Do you need action on these from council?
So staffing outside of director positions is managed by the borough manager and the police chief. This is not a director position, but because it's the head of a department, out of an abundance of deference, we're bringing it to you. So I would appreciate, support for that.
So before we get into the discussion, is there a motion to accept or approve the planning and zoning and code enforcement manager job description as presented this evening?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Joel. Is there a second? Thank you, Sam. Any discussion? Sam, in terms of personnel committee, are you guys comfortable with this? Any questions? Edits, comments, any brief questions from anyone? Doug, you were part of that discussion. You're okay with it? Okay, if there's no other questions or discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. And then to the offer letter, do you want action on that as well?
Yes.
Okay. There's an offer letter, to, Alexandria, Lexi Gams, for the position, beginning, how the start date is not on here, it's to be determined.
It'll be within the next couple weeks here. So she's dealing with some personal things. So it'll be soon here, not yet determined.
Okay. So it's all the standard benefits and vacation time and health insurances and so forth. Full-time exempt position beginning at $75,000 a year.
That's correct.
Is there a motion to accept the conditional offer letter as presented?
Except
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you very much. Discussion. Kathleen, did you have something? No? Any issues? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Welcome to Lexi. And approval of bills paid. Finance Committee reviewed the invoices, which totaled $954,083.93. We had all of our questions answered. I don't think there was any major debate, Joel, that we had. So with that, I'll make the motion that we approve the invoices as stated in this bill statement. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It carries. And minutes from the December 4th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the December 4th minutes? Thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you. Discussion. Was a couple of questions that I had. Ken Edwards had concerns or questions about which of the crosswalks were done or not done. Has he gotten that question answered? You know, has Rob gotten back to you or anyone? Okay. Could we please get someone from Public Works to follow up on that? Sorry about that, Ken.
December 4th on.
Yep. And then I think there was a typo, Rachel, on page 2, under the adoption of the 2024 budget, the millage increase for the library, I believe was 0.02. It says 0.5 in here.
Sorry.
On page 2, under public meeting, adoption of 2024 budget. Second paragraph, I just think it's 0.02, not 0.05 for the library. Thank you. Any other issues, comments? All those in favor of the December 4th minutes, including that edit, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries. And December 4th minutes, is there a motion, Kathleen, to approve the December 4th minutes as presented? Sorry, it's December 6th, forgive me. Kathleen? Thank you. Joel, is that a second?
It's a second, Bob.
Discussion?
I did have one a very minor edit I noticed. Second paragraph of public comments, the second sentence starts with a J-E instead of an H-E, I assume. Nick Perigo's statement there.
We can point that out to you, Rachel. Any other discussion? Yep.
Sorry, just going back to, well, I'll let you finish this and then I'd like to go back to the last minutes.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Kyle.
I apologize. Did we make a change to the millage rate on page 3? Or was it elsewhere?
Um, I have page 2 right here.
It was page 2, bottom, under public meeting, adoption of 24 budget, second paragraph, second line.
Okay, so I think that refers to the difference in the borough's rate that's due to the library being approved. Because remember, the borough 0.05 of that was the delta there. But I think it should be 0.05, whereas 0.2 was the actual increase approved by taxpayers. Because previously the borough was paying less to the library, which is 0.15.
Okay. Can we edit
can-
that just to show that it's the difference or something? to
We
that
can
effect?
explain it better,
Okay.
yeah.
Is council okay with Kyle and Rachel working that edit out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think that was the formal agenda.
Mr. Norris,
Please.
before you go, I think there's an action item that we missed. I didn't catch it on the agenda. I believe council has to appoint at the reorganizational meeting, a vacancy board member.
Okay.
And I think it has to, because the term expires automatically every 2 years at the reorganization. So I think council has to appoint somebody, and considering that we do have a vacancy, we could need a vacancy board member. So I think council needs to appoint somebody tonight. By tradition, it frequently is somebody who just departed council because they're most up to speed. So maybe council would just appoint Mr. Durfler here to the vacancy board, should the vacancy board have to be impaneled.
We're,
It can be anybody, but but typically it's usually an outgoing council member who can step in if the vacancy board's impaneled. It has been every year for 14 years.
so, Doug, we're putting you on the spot here. Okay. So, in what the role is?
The vacancy board is only used if council is unable to appoint the new council member to the open position. So if council were to come back beyond 30 days, so if council can't make the appointment within 30 days, then that vacancy board member is there only to break ties or to assist if council can't appoint somebody in the time period. So it's probably never been used, but you have to have it. And I think it's part of the reorganization.
Okay. So, thank you very, very much. Is there a council member who'd like to nominate Doug Dorfler as the vacancy board member?
I will move to nominate Doug Dorfler as our vacancy board member.
Is there a second? Thank you both. Any discussion? Doug, you're okay. All those, thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Matt, thanks for that catch. With that, Kyle, can you share, we do have a vacancy, as everyone is well aware of right now. The council member was elected, is not able to fulfill the office. It's a council seat, full council seat for the next 4 years. Because it has to coincide with the 3 and 4 off for the council every 2 years. Kyle has suggested to the council a process. The council, I think, is bought into that. Can you share that with everyone here?
Absolutely. And the hope is that you'll help us to find a great council member. So January 3rd, tomorrow, we'll be posting to our website a very straightforward application, asking for a resume, asking for basic information. What's your interest in this? What's your background? We will share those with council as we receive them. January 17th, they'll be due. So it's a 2-week period to take in those requests, working under a required 30-day window to fill the spot. And then January 25th at 7 p.m., we've scheduled or requested scheduling of a council special meeting with the sole purpose of that meeting being to appoint a newest council member. Maybe an item or two gets added if we have to, but that's the purpose of the meeting. The idea being we would provide, schedule people for 15-minute sessions. Council can interview, council can ask questions. So hopefully after you've gotten the application, you've gotten the information, you're well prepared to pick your next colleague. So everyone in the audience, we would really appreciate you sending great candidates our way.
Doug?
That's right.
Do we have to formally accept no, okay.
No, I checked on Mr. Karati. He just declined to be sworn in, so
It's not.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And thanks, Kyle, for pulling that together.
Sure.
Any other comments?
Our junior member, Tafoya, is on the Zoom. He just wanted to send a congratulations to Council President Norris and Vice President Kakamo. And then I wanted to thank everyone for confirming my contract and allowing me to continue to work here.
Mr. Mayor, anything?
well, thank you.
Kathleen? Joel? Julie? Yeah. Anything? Any brief comment from anyone else?
It's not as if the person would seek to finish your term. So the question you have in relation to this, usually the person is usually in the job when you finish the years of position. In this case, the job is never taken. When do you ask for a special protection?
You can't.
It's a little bit more to investigate this law. So, 4 years position is open to special open. It's not finishing the term.
I don't think the code provides for it.
Or voting districts. I mean, voting districts in
They need to fill the spot.
Yeah, I checked with Mr. Karati when we found Mr. King was not going to for part of tonight's swearing in. And he said that it has to run the entire term because it's a 3-4 switch, right? So in 2 years from now, there'll be 4 members of council up. So you can't change the term, and Pennsylvania does not allow for special elections for borough council. So it's an appointment for the rest of the term. It would be 4 years. You can't. Well, the code's clear on it. The code is clear that on a 7-member council, it's 3 members are elected on the off years, 4 members are elected on the other ones. It's a 3-year slot. It's a 3-year term that would have started today. So the borough code's clear. I'm sure Mr. Cry, but it's a 4-year term, but this is a 3-member council year. So all 3 members start their 4-year term. You can't have a partial term at the general election in November.
If we had a partial term, then there would be 5 seats up, and that's not allowed
You can't do it.
according to borough code.
Not with
Correct.
7 members. You could do it with 5 members, but you can't do it with 7.
Are there any other comments or questions? Ken? Every 2 years. He wasn't elected, so no is the answer. He can apply for it.
We would not be able to simply appoint him without an application. If he were to apply, correct, even though.
Yeah, the borough code spells it out pretty clearly, pretty well. With that, thanks very much for the opportunity to act as president along with Kathleen. And Juan, I hope you're doing well and down in Mexico, and thanks for the kind words. Is there a motion to adjourn, Joel?
Moved.
Is there a second? Julie? We are, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Gotta hit the gavel, Bob.